trade. There's more to lose than can never be won, more to dump than can never be saved. Influencers, tweets, and the noobs all follow, buying high, selling low, what a game. But the boomers know, and Sailor, he knows that the dump is coming. It's all the same. It's the circle of exit liquid.
There will be no real non-controlled currency in the world.
We're coming for you, banks.
Listening to different podcasts, like in a whole different reality, which they think completely different things about Bitcoin.
They have got my money in their banking system. I should be able to access it, right?
Appler is live.
There's a good number of fucking, like, pretty smart bee catchers.
Hello and welcome back to the Bitcoin Cash podcast. Following Bitcoin Cash on its rise to global reserve currency. This is episode number 163, Bitcoin Jungle and Roger release featuring David Hudman. Today is Sunday, the 12th of October, 2025. The markets are having a terrible time. There was a big crypto dump this week, but BCH shining through. I always feel like it's that Bane meme, you know, you just adopted the bear market. I was born into it, you know. That's kind of how I feel like BCH is. So we've actually gained a couple of ranks up to rank 15, $533.85 US cents for 100 megasats, down a little bit. One BTC sat buys 211.3 BCH sats, also down a little bit, and one ETH sat, one ETH Ethereum buys 751 megasats. That's actually down slightly, yeah. Selene 30-day users, 572, and the Tokenaut TVL, 9,864. That's also dumped off a little bit because everyone would have been getting liquidated on BCH Bull, but not me. I was making gains, closed out a couple of shorts early, made some gains, so you love to see it. All right, our guest today is David Hudman, who was previously on the show, episode number 66, so nearly 100 episodes gap there. That's quite incredible to think about, which was on the 3rd of December 2022, right after the St. Kitts conference. He is a BCH globetrotter, an advocate, and I guess just general libertarian, free thinking kind of enthusiast. Welcome back to the show, David. How you been doing? What's going on with you?
Thanks for having me back. I'm stoked to be on. I'll probably have to make another trip to some other exotic location just so I can get another appearance. I should have been on in St. Kitts, but I was like too focused on I gotta go for a run so I can be like 0.001% by the time I get back to the States. So this should be my third appearance, but it wasn't. That was my bad, not keeping the priorities straight. But I'm excited to come back and tell you guys about Costa Rica.
Tell me
Bitcoin Jungle.
Tell me about BCH though. Have you been keeping up with the community? Like that was St. Kitts. You're an OG now, mate. There's a lot of people in the scene over the last 2.5, 3 years that they weren't around when the St. Kitts conference was happening, let alone actually, being there in person. How are you feeling in hindsight? It's been a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still following the show. I follow Selene development, and I follow the price, obviously. And with the recent downturn, it was kind of exciting to see BCH moving up a few spots. I think that was definitely well deserved. And I mean, I know it's kind of up and down all the time, but I'm definitely still watching things very closely. I just maybe been a little bit distracted lately with travel to get anything done, but definitely did due diligence on the Costa Rica trip so that I could bring back some some valuable insights for you guys, hopefully.
Hell yeah. And tell me though, seriously, on the St. Kitts thing, now it's worth giving a little bit of a retrospective about that, right? At the time, and I was discussing with some people recently as well too, the idea was that we would have a lot of local adoption, which we did have. I believe it's maybe dropped off since then, but at the time there was a lot of BCH adoption, and Sonny was there doing fantastic work. I don't know what happened to him, but he hasn't been active in a couple of years. And there was also Roger was there, who we'll get to in a minute. But there was actually pretty good adoption going on in St. Kitts, and the hope was to get legal tender over the line, which was not exactly promised, but it was sort of like semi-announced. That was kind of the vibe. And then when we were there at the conference, which was very noticeable because it was the first one since 2019, there was that period of COVID and lockdowns and everything. But we managed to get everyone, and there was a lot of, like with St. Kitts, they didn't have any vaccine requirements or anything, which was pretty critical because otherwise basically nobody could have gone.
Yeah.
But we did the conference, and the Prime Minister, instead of saying that they were going to do legal tender for BCH, he instead said that they were going to do a report to be released next March, which would have been March of 2023, which they then never delivered on. So I don't know if you have any thoughts about that entire initiative in hindsight.
Well, I mean, when you look at St. Kitts, it's like it's the size of a small town. It's like 40,000. So it's like he's the prime minister, but he's kind of like the mayor.
Yes.
But except they have like international recognition and stuff. I mean, around and like spend BCH at these different places. That was obviously like super exciting. And there were probably some places there were also like significant number of people who and maybe we went in there with this mentality that like we want like some advertisement, we see billboards and stuff, like, everyone must accept it. We'd seen Mark Balzan's his videos, and we're like, yeah, this is awesome. They make it look like everybody is accepting it. Like in reality, like, I mean, I'm going to say best case is like 20% were accepting it at peak. And then once there weren't people there who were spending it a lot, then, they probably started to have employee turnover. People like new employees didn't accept it or had never been trained on it. The device wasn't connected to the Wi-Fi anymore, different things like that, which were all also things that I saw in Costa Rica as well. But we haven't been back to St. Kitts to verify, but like kind of sounds like probably the adoption has fallen off without somebody there to manage everything. But again, I don't want to like say that, 'cause somebody might say like, hey, I've been there, you're wrong. I'm open to seeing it if that's the case. I can just tell you what I saw in Costa. It's like I feel like it's hard to make it work without somebody there actively. But it seems like Argentina has that, and they're like very active, really, really crushing it there. Townsville as well.
Yeah, I always thought like all those people that we did either spent the BCH with or that we tipped people, restaurant staff and stuff like that, between the whole BCH community, there was actually quite a lot of that happened in St. Kitts. And some of those people will, of course, inevitably just lose their seed phrase or forget about it or whatever. But if they hadn't, at the time, BCH was like, sub $100 or something like that, or it was maybe only $120, $130, something. So those people have now made, even with the recent price crash, like 4 or 5x their money easily if they had been still following along and paying attention. So I haven't heard anything in that regard, but it kind of proves the point that anybody who was paying attention hopefully has realized like, wait, these guys were onto something. It's much better that way than the other way around, that they got it and then the price crashed. But of course the big picture is hopefully it will rise over time.
And I feel like seeing this in Costa Rica, like the essential element and what they told me, like the secret sauce is, not to like get ahead of myself and like the slides and everything, but I feel like the essential element was, or literally what they told me was that they have a conversion between the local currency and Bitcoin that they can do for people, and it's like instantly in their account. It's like seamless. So I kind of thought after seeing that that maybe Sunny was the one actually accepting BCH like on their behalf or doing the exchange for them. Of course, they had the ATMs as well, so that like was a path to cash. But maybe there was like a quicker thing where it's like, hey, you can just pay me and I'll just send you cash at the end of the week or something. There might have been something going on like that. But anyway, whoever got it, yeah, they're up like at least 5x, if not more. So.
Yeah, the ATMs was the same thing I was thinking, but even that was a little bit sort of unreliable in the sense that you could use it and it was great. And in fact, you could even, I believe, if you timed it right, you could actually make money on that because the ATM would be offering rates that were favorable if you were paying attention. But on the other hand, it like there was only a couple of them. You had to physically go to them, which is still like a pain, even though St. Kitts is kind of small, unless you were right nearby, it was still sort of a pain to get there. And then like one of them was inside a shop, which would obviously be closed maybe on like weekends or at certain times. So yeah, it doesn't really have that like 24/7 crypto feel to it, you know?
Yeah, that's definitely the case. And I remember using one in the airport. I mean, it worked well, but yeah, getting inside the airport might be like kind of an issue for people on a regular basis.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, let's crack on then with the latest thing happening in BCH, which is BCH Blaze. So we've already previously announced that, but the schedule is starting to come together and it will be starting to really get rolling sort of from the next week through October until the end of November. We will put out a full schedule of what we're planning to do very soon so that people can plan around that. But basically for the next week, there's two things. The first is on Saturday, the 18th of October. So in 6 days from now, from 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. UTC, we will be having an information session where we're going to walk through how everything works for people who are going to be participating in the hackathon. So they get a full understanding of how everything breaks down, how the prizes work, how the bounty system works, and obviously take Q&A from anybody who has any questions about it. That session will be live streamed on the BCH podcast channel, and then we're going to obviously have a recording of it. So if anybody is not able to tune into it live, that information will all still be available to you. But that's the first point of contact if you are participating in Blaze, which I hope all the listeners are, or if you're thinking about participating, signups will be open until the end of October. So you can take a look at that and sort of see the presentation of how it's all going to work and hopefully get inspired and then sign up from there. And then the day after, on Sunday, 1 week from now, the 19th of October, from 11 a.m. UTC until 1 p.m. UTC, we're going to get Jonathan back on the podcast again. So we'll cover a little bit of what we talk about in the information session, briefly, and then also be able to get his thoughts on how Blaze is going and how everything's going to work as well. Then after that, we'll have a full calendar of, live streams and so forth. We're going to run 3 workshops from BCH expert devs so that people can get to kind of grips with the BCH tech stack. If they've never used it before, obviously this is the whole point, to onboard new devs and so forth. So people should also look out for them, but they will be coming in the following weeks. And that means there's going to be plenty of opportunity if you're brand new to BCH, or you don't have somebody to be on a team with, or you think you don't know enough about it to build something or whatever. We're going to have loads and loads of support to help you find a team, pick an idea, get skilled up on the tech stack you're going to need, or put you in contact with people to be devs on your team or whatever. So I really do encourage as many people as possible to try this out, because it is completely free to enter, and we are offering a non-trivial amount of BCH in prizes that you can win. And even more than that, even if you don't win, or even if you do win, the more valuable thing will be all the connections that you make in the scene and the knowledge that you'll get from being sort of on the ground, hands-on, like building new stuff, really. So that's the fresh announcement that I've got about Blaze. What do you think? Are you going to be in Blaze, David?
I'm interested. I was actually going to ask you what the sign up link was. I think you may have put it at the beginning, but I think
it's on Dora Hacks. Let me actually just put you can go to bchblaze.cash, and we have a link there to Dora Hacks, which is the hackathon platform that we're using to organize it all. And to be totally honest, it's also my first time using Dora Hacks, so we're kind of learning as we're going a little bit with that. But there's loads of information on that page, something about the sponsors. There's loads of information with resources for getting started in BCH. There's a thing there where you can join a team. There's information about the bounties. You can ask questions there if you want. So anybody who is curious should go to bchblaze.cash and then follow the link to Dora Hacks to maybe sign up and get involved. But that is the biggest thing going on in the next week in BCH. So definitely involved. Yeah, exactly. I mean, people have been asking about a hackathon for a long time, and I've been very pleased that sometimes people say, we need this, we need this, we need this, but nobody does it. And then when somebody does it, everyone's kind of like, oh, it turns out we didn't actually need it. We just like the idea of it. But this concept of a hackathon seems to really be catching fire. I've been very impressed with our sign-ups so far. We've had people submitting bounties. People have been very interested in being a part of it. So I'm really glad to see that. And I guess it's something that happens in other cryptocurrency ecosystems and has been very powerful. So I'm glad to see that BCH is maybe going to be able to step up and take things to the next level in terms of competing with that. Have you ever done a hackathon of crypto or anything else?
I can't say I've actually been at a hackathon now that I think about it, but I was going to say I felt like St. Kitts was sort of like that because not everybody was a dev. So if you weren't a dev, it was still a good place for you. But if you were a dev, you probably really liked it because it was at least half of the people were developers, and not just developers. They were OGs. So they'd been around a while. Yeah. So that was and I think that's why I kind of left there. I'm I'm going to build something. And I even started building stuff while I was there. So it was kind of that kind of thing. So yeah, I think this is going to be an awesome kind of virtual representation of that.
Yeah, it is online, so everyone can be involved from wherever you are in the world. There's no physical meetup component to this. Obviously, we are hoping then it will sort of transition into Bliss in terms of if you do a great job of your hackathon entry, the top couple of prizes can win tickets to Bliss, and obviously BCH to maybe help them come along. But even if you don't win, people will be watching this stream, and certainly some investors and so forth in the ecosystem who might want to get you along to meet you at Bliss, for instance, if they are really impressed by your project, or maybe, you link up with team members and you all get excited to go together. Whatever the case is, we're really going to wait and see how it turns out. But obviously, as much as possible, any promising projects, we are going to do everything we can to try and incubate and help them get started at Blaze, but then also progress from there on. So I just really want to emphasize there's no minimum entry level. You don't need any money. If you've got an internet connection, you can be a part of this, and we'll help you to get the most out of it that we can. So yeah, I really want everybody possible to check that out and sign up. Aside from Blaze, obviously the BCH ecosystem has been powering ahead for the last couple of years. I don't know if you have anything that you are particularly excited about, or that you've seen in, that 3 years since St. Kitts. We saw the whole collapse of Smart BCH in 2023. And then in the following years, the cash tokens ecosystem has started to come to fruition. We've got the Layla upgrade with the lock-in. How are you feeling about all that?
Probably the most thing I'm excited. Obviously, Selene is awesome, and you guys have built an incredible platform. I've tried to dabble in that, and then kind of haven't gotten a lot done that I wanted to be honest. But MUSD, probably one of the more exciting things, seeing the potential for people, just swapping in and out of that very easily, which is, like it being fully collateralized by BCH, that's like, I mean, I think even with some of this volatility, we saw like that its value like temporarily dropped off, but like I guess there's like some incentive structure. Like I don't understand everything related to it, but like basically bots were able to like bring the price back up within like 5 or 10 minutes, which was really like crazy to see it corrected that fast.
Yeah, it's incredible. Like I think it was from memory, it was like it dropped down to about 85 cents from the $1 peg with this huge crypto meltdown. BTC dropped, I don't know, 15 grand or something like that. Of course, wiping out, billions and billions of dollars of capital and everything like that. And when that happens, that's when you get the chance to see the anti-fragility in the system. And with Moria, I've got actually here a little meme. Maybe I had it on one of my other tabs, but it was the Christopher Moltisanti meme from The Sopranos where he's explaining things. He was explaining MUSD, like how, here we go. Let me just send this to Jet so you can put it up on the slides. Here we go. Okay, so it's like this. It says it's Christopher Moltisanti in the Sopranos explaining. It's called an incentivized floating peg T. Keeps that sucker in perfect equilibrium and shit. Price is too high, loans are redeemed and coins sold. Arbitrage dough straight in your pocket. Too low, cop that shit on a DEX and redeem a loan. Free fucking money. Keeps the peg tight as a nun's pussy at Moria Money. So yeah, that's right. It seems like it worked. The price is too low. People could jump on the DEX, buy up some MUSD on the cheap, and then redeem loans that they're getting paid at the full value of like 1 MUSD, which then cycles the price back up. So yeah, it works. It's good to see it. Good to see it surviving in practice, definitely. All right. We gotta move on to. You still there?
My bandwidth. It's just saying my bandwidth is kind of poor. I'll shoot you a message real quick.
All right. We can quickly refresh the stream if we need to, but hopefully it can hold up. All right.
It looks like it's okay. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah. Still hearing you.
Okay, cool.
All right, let's crack on. All right, next thing we've got is the release, the fantastic news potentially of Roger Ver, who has, of course, been detained in Spain for how long at this point? Well over a year. I don't think quite 2 years, but maybe a year and a half. News came out this week that he has reportedly settled with the US government for $48 million to end his prosecution under tax laws. Of course, I mean, it's ridiculous that he would even have to pay any money at all. It's basically just a ransom payment to get them to leave him alone, seeing as there's essentially no evidence that he had done anything wrong. He had already paid all the taxes and had done everything he could to comply with the laws at the time that they were written. But regardless, if it costs, $48 million to get them to leave him alone in perpetuity, it seems like it would be worth it. I'm, just 5% skeptical in that he himself hasn't said anything about this yet. And I'm sort of wary of this has been widely reported by a lot of media outlets, but I would not put it past them for one fake story to have then, been spread around everywhere. So this seems credible, but until he, breaks his own silence and announces that he's out of Spain or whatever, I still feel like I'm going to be a little skeptical. But hopefully, of course, it is real and it will end his persecution permanently. Crypto is, of course, constantly going mainstream. So the utility of attacking people over their cryptocurrency investments and so forth is less and less politically tenable as time goes on. What do you make of this, David?
I mean, yeah, I kind of took it at face value. I mean, you could definitely be right. I hope that, works out that he's able to just, pay pay the ransom and, be done with it. I was kind of hoping for, maybe a second appearance, on, Tucker Carlson, or, maybe something with like Ross Ulbricht, to get kind of back into it. But yeah, I don't know. You could definitely be right. The jury's
Assuming
out
he's,
there.
assuming he does make it out, like I'm sure he will not be. I understand why he would play it cautiously. He's probably not going to be the first thing to do is like go on Twitter and say, "I'm free, I'm out, yeah, guys." Like he's going to just be happy to have it over and done with, and obviously he's going to need to get his life, back in order. Who knows how many things have been, on ice or disrupted by the situation that he has been in. I'm very happy for him if he is able to get out of there. I know he had thought a few months ago that it was already clear that basically the government couldn't win their case against him, and that they were essentially just trying to drag it out as long as possible. Kind of the process was the punishment in a way, and of course they're always trying to make an example of him and many others to try and discourage people from being involved in cryptocurrency and, standing up against state overreach. So he's done us all, a favor in the sense that if he is able to successfully wrap that up, it will make it more difficult the next time for somebody to be targeted in the same way. But I don't have strong confidence that it won't happen anyway. Like a lot of the reporting around this was that, oh, well, Trump's administration is, easing up on crypto, blah, blah, blah. But I don't really buy that so much, because I feel like there can always just be a change in the administration, a change in even within the Trump administration, the winds are blowing in another direction or whatever. And before you know it, it's right back to harassing prominent figures in cryptocurrency. What do you think?
Just based on what I've seen, to see a company like Steak and Shake start accepting, Bitcoin over the Lightning Network, to see, Square saying they're going to have the option for everyone to, enable, payments over Lightning. I think they said in the next month. To me, that says like whatever the current state of the administration is like, pretty much for like more freedom within the crypto space. So people are, I guess, building a lot more than maybe they would have, opening up more things. But at the same time, like that doesn't mean that they can't just like turn the controls back on really quick as soon as another administration comes on. So it's like, oh yeah, you can just like spend Lightning, no KYC and like all this stuff. But in 4 years, is it just going to be like, oh, here's the show your driver's license, or show your passport kind of screen right before you pay? That would be very easy. And I would say, especially what we kind of know about the layout of the Lightning Network, kind of tending towards this like hub and spoke kind of like centralization. So it's like, oh, everybody's just going to connect to the Coinbase, Lightning node, and they're going to have certain requirements, and yeah, you can go around them, but it's going to cost you to do that. And so but I would still say like my confidence level on him getting out of jail is, or this all being resolved pretty soon, I would say like I'm 90% confident this is going to like work out in a positive way for him. He's going to be able to leave Spain in within a few months, I would say. What's your confidence level?
Well, I would say similar. Like I say that, I still have maybe 5% of my mind reserved, because I always feel like nothing's done until it's done. But like you said, if he does something with Ross Ulbricht, I know they're definitely mates. Ross Ulbricht was tweeting out about, those pictures of like Roger supporting him in 2014, and then it was kind of like a decade later he had to sort of return the favor and all that. That would just be so big. Like if they cooked up something good between the two of them, that could just be, and I don't know whether they would, that's the thing. Like there's no obviously obligation on them to do anything like that. Maybe they both just want to fly under the radar a little bit for all we know. But if they're feeling like sticking their, hand back in the fire again, then between the two of them, the amount of media coverage and stuff they could get, I mean, they're both obviously just all in on the mission, right? Like, there's no doubts about that. So I kind of wonder if that would happen, or if it did, it would shake things up significantly as well too. For all the people that think Roger, he's such a bad guy, but they think, well, Ross is the best because of his early Bitcoin advocacy, that would maybe throw a spanner in their mental framework of things,
I am surprised he went to Spain in the first place after what happened to John McAfee. But I guess, he thought it was safe enough. Maybe things thought had changed, but seems like that's like a very high risk country to be going to. They're kind of known, well, at least now with Roger, with at least two of these cases that we know of. It's kind of like now they've kind of got a reputation.
Yeah, well, it's going to be geopolitical football. It's all around the world. Different countries are always trying to position themselves. That's kind of the beauty of Bitcoin in a way. It's the game theory sort of prisoner's dilemma of different countries. Like, the harder they crack down on cryptocurrency, well, that's fine, because that creates an opportunity for another country to be pro cryptocurrency, who are then going to get all of the capital and entrepreneurialism that it inevitably brings. But then if they let it happen a bit in their country, then cryptocurrency goes stronger, and then they can't regulate it as effectively, or the incentive grows for somebody else to be liberating it up even a little bit more. So that is, of course, the engine of change that means crypto is eventually going to win. And that's why I feel like, we're on this journey where 10 years ago, you couldn't go anywhere without constantly getting FUD about, we're all going to go to jail and everybody's going to be killed, and the government's going to lock everyone up and throw away the key, and this is all going to be crushed and it will all stop, and et cetera, et cetera. But every single day, more and more people get on board with crypto, and less people are actively against it, trying to fight against it, right? So we're kind of at some point we passed a threshold at which it's just done and dusted. Crypto is just part of the world, and nobody is even bothering. It's like fighting against the wind or something. There's no point of even trying, so people don't. We're not quite there yet, but I feel like we might be getting close, Yeah,
I remember listening to Stefan Livera a while back, and there was kind of some people, there's just those people that are always out there nothing can stop the Bitcoin network, there's just no government can compete with it, they'd have to turn on all these data centers. And this guest came on the show, is basically these mining centers, they're places you can go, a government can send people there. It's not, and it's not like people are just all mining from their laptops. This was maybe a little, but also with countries trying to acquire more lately, maybe it has changed the game, and maybe we'll start to see more competition. I mean, I remember, people years ago writing about every country trying to have to compete against each other for their piece of the pie. I don't know. I mean, that's all I have.
Well, clearly you're not feeling we're at any great risk. It certainly seems to be at least trending in the right direction, and hopefully Roger is sort of in the last wave of this sort of malicious prosecution and so forth before the world gets busy fighting some other battle and just kind of accepts that cryptocurrency is a neutral, beneficial technology which is unstoppable. So, to the extent that people don't like it, they've just got bigger fish to fry, fighting some other ideological battle or whatever.
Well, the thing about a time like this, when regulation seems relatively low and the administration seems relatively friendly, is you might have a tendency not to make things as decentralized as maybe they should be, which can create problems down the road. So I'm kind of thinking, the stuff that's going on with MUSD, the decentralized exchanges could end up being pretty powerful. I watched the show with with the Mocha app, and like kind of talking about like having all these different payment methods, being able to accept multi-coin and stuff. The relevance of decentralized exchanges becomes like a little bit more obvious, and being able to like kind of tie that together so that there's sort of like, it's sort of like coin agnostic from the merchant perspective and the consumer perspective, so that everybody kind of has the opportunity to use whatever they want, which kind of leads me to the conclusion that the future is kind of going to be multi-coin, if it's not like outright CBDC dystopian. So
yes, BCH, the one coin to rule them all. But I mean, there was many rings, just as there was the one ring. So BCH can be top dog, but of course, there's always going to be those smaller competitors. Even once we've mostly wiped them out, they'll be around. This show is not a one coin and maximalist in that sense. It is BCH maximalist, but you got to be realistic. The free market always has things operating at the fringes. Okay, speaking of that, so tell us about Bitcoin Jungle. So you have been down in Costa Rica where there is this BTC Jungle initiative. To be honest, I had a quick look at it after you were telling me about it, but I don't know what kind of scope, scale, size, history, or anything is behind it. So lay us all, break it all down for us. Like, how's it work?
Sure. I feel like you should go to that picture that I sent you of Paul, if you have. I mean, I don't know if
you got it on the next slide. But,
that kind of like sets the tone for it, because it's like, it's sort of central, like, or I hate to say centralized, but it's like farmers market that happened twice a week. People about saying it. There's like a national leaders, and anyway, so it's like sort of a tourist attraction. There's waterfalls around and stuff like that. And this farmers market happens twice a week. I'm not sure who organizes the farmers market, but basically someone who was like, a person in the community, or maybe a person like kind of associated with the farmers market, I guess wanted to encourage people to accept Bitcoin. So they basically told them, it's like, hey, if you accept Bitcoin, we'll let you, off ramp to dollars. We'll walk around with a bunch of cash at the end of the week, and we'll let you guys, convert if you want to. And we'll help advertise for you, because we have like this app, we have these developers, we're going to like try to advertise so outsiders will come here and like want to buy from you. They did that for like a certain amount of time, and eventually they didn't need to do that anymore, because people, I guess, saw price increases. They started, because I don't know exactly when, but eventually there's going to be like a tick up in Bitcoin, and people are going to be like, hey, maybe I want to like hang on to this. So that worked pretty well for them. And they also have this sort of national thing that only works in Costa Rica, but it allows you to send money to any phone number. And that became like a very crucial part of people being able to convert into fiat if they needed to. It's kind of like the crucial piece. And I mean, if you've talked much to people from like Townsville, it seems like some of them have said that that's like kind of an important part of it, to have like, they call them like underwriters. That's like kind of crucial. But they also have to see like relevance, they have to see like enough people coming there and stuff. And so I guess there have been like enough Bitcoiners move there. Cause I mean, I noticed there are a lot of people that have like the same kind of mentality as us. Like, for example, like I walked around, like I paid a few people, like maybe they like kind of seemed to know what was going on. Maybe they like could kind of use the app a little bit. There was like a little bit of friction, but like, then I come up to this one guy and I'm like, yeah, I want to like, buy something from you, because he had the like sticker there that said he accepted it. And then I don't know, we just kind of got to talking, and it was like, oh, well, it sounds like you're interested in Monero too. Like, oh, I'll pay in Monero. And, you know, he like didn't want to like turn on the Wi-Fi on his phone, or he's like, well, like, you know, can we like maybe like figure out how to do this another way? I don't want anybody to like don't want you to record me or anything like that. So it's like, okay, like, you know, these people are kind of like of the same mind as us. They're not like enemies. The enemy is the government that we're both fighting. Of course, people can be like co-opted and all that, but I'd say like for the most part, you know, they're our friends. They just like kind of took a different side of like a particular issue. So, but outside of that, outside of the farmers market, and I mean, I've had like a few conversations there. I ended up seeing Paul at the farmers market. Asked for a picture with him. You see on the screen.
So who's this guy? Give me a breakdown. This is Paul. Who's Paul? I've never heard of him.
Sorry. So Paul in the jungle on Instagram. If you look him up, he's like pretty popular influencer. I think he's, you know, seems like he's been on podcasts, but he has his own following himself. I found out about him like a year ago, and that's why I ended up there, was because I was like, oh, people use this in Costa Rica. I mean, maybe I'd seen like a YouTube video or two, but I'd say like most of his content made it seem like, okay, like people are there using this. So I got to see what this is about. And it happened to work really well because I was coming back from South America, and I kind of needed to fly through somewhere, and Costa Rica just kind of worked out. It was either going to be that or El Salvador, actually. And I thought I wanted to do both, but it didn't quite work out to be able to do that. Anyway, so yeah, kind of the first place I went was this farmer's market. But I was kind of familiar with their app. I'd like, looked into it, and I'd seen the map of all their merchants. I think it was, they had like a Bitcoin Jungle app. They had like a Bitcoin Jungle website, and they were also using this like sort of Noster kind of app called Primal. And that's a big thing that he promotes, which is interesting in itself. It has Lightning built into it. You can tip people and stuff. But like between the different apps, there's like sometimes a little bit of friction. But I'd say like overall, it's like they've developed something that's pretty good, that looks a lot like Twitter, and it's got Lightning built into it. And even though it's custodial, like from talking to them, they seem to be pretty good about like maintaining contact information between like within their community, so that they can let people know like, hey, you've got over $1,000, you've got to move it to something else. Like you can't just keep it in a Lightning wallet at this point. Cause like there was this one guy that I met there, he said he'd been accepting it for over 3 years for like selling beef. And he had made like over $100,000 or taken over $100,000 in like total beef sales. So, you know, you're not talking about like a small amount of money. Like you've got to move this to, or, you know, convert to fiat or, you know, something, because they're managing and I even noticed this when I was paying with my Lightning Mon wallet. Like it identified that I was like sending all of these things to the same BTC Pay server Lightning node. And so basically they're kind of acting like a community bank for Uvita. And I understand like that side of things. It's like, you know, it's not like the ideal solution from my perspective. But you know, I've heard the argument. It's not like, I don't know, the craziest thing to me. There are crazier things that people try to pull over us.
So how many people, if you had to estimate, like in this area or in this sort of local network of BTC transacting, did you get any sense of the scale? Are we talking about 50 people, 500 people, 5,000 people, 50,000 people?
That's a good question. Because like there were a lot at that farmer's market. I mean, like, you know, the farmer's market probably had 40 or 50 accepting it there. But outside of there, like if you weren't at the farmer's market, which was only 2 days a week, you might feel like maybe 10% of businesses accept it here. And which in my opinion is really good. Because like, you know, I went to a vegan coffee shop that was on the beach, which I would never go to a vegan coffee shop, but because I found out that they accepted Bitcoin, I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll try the coconut milk or whatever it is y'all have. And I talked to her a bit about it. The girl that was running the shop, she seemed to like it, but now would I have found that place? Because like there were a bunch of businesses around there, and like hers is sort of like you had to walk a bit. Like I probably wouldn't have like naturally found it, but except for the fact that when I took the bus to that town from the capital city that you fly into, San Jose, down to Uvita, which is only $13. It's a cheap bus ride for like 2.5 hours, and pretty nice. When I got off the bus, it was like there was a place right there off the bus station. So having that, I think, was like very positive for them, for an outsider like me coming in. Now, if you took a taxi, you might not have that experience, but like if you got money to pay for a taxi, you might have paid for some other things that I didn't pay for. Like there were like kind of higher end restaurants that accepted it, and I was kind of like, yeah, but do I want to pay like $60 for a meal? Like maybe not. Or like, do I want to stay in, a place that's $200 a night that accepts Bitcoin when I could stay in a hostel that's only $15, which is what I did.
Yes.
Which is actually really cool. It did feel like, really jungly. And like, I mean, if you're into that kind of thing, it is a cool place to visit. So yeah, I might have gotten a little bit off track there. There's like sort of a lot, when I try to like articulate just like the vibe of everything.
So did you notice then, like, for instance, this merchant who was accepting it, or some of the ones at the farmers market or something, did you get a sense that they have an economy amongst themselves, that they're trading BTC amongst themselves, or is it more sort of like to attract tourists or to attract people coming into the community?
I think it's different for each individual person. Like some people are going to be like us, that are going to be like, yeah, I've got this thing here. And it's almost like maybe even like their business is not the main thing. It's like just having a way to like be in the Bitcoin space is like really why they're like selling whatever it is they're selling. Like, cause they have no interest in selling like vegetables, whatever. But some people are kind of like, okay, like everybody at the farmers market's doing this. Like I'll like dabble in it or whatever. And maybe they say like, oh yeah, I've like watched it go up or down. But then there's like the guy that was selling beef that like he seemed to really understand, although he didn't seem like he had like a Bitcoin background. So there's like there's different kinds of people on all sides, but I would kind of say like the typical person, maybe like 60 to 80% are probably going to be like pretty normie, but they're liking that maybe they can attract a few more customers and then just easily take advantage of the fiat off ramp if they want to. But at the same time, like some of them might even be holding it and speculating, because they did tell me that like people don't seem to be using that fiat off ramp as much as they were in the beginning. So
yeah, well, that's how it starts, and super impressive if they have a local economy that's functioning. Yeah, I'm sure things are always going to be a little bit scrappy when you're first starting them up. I mean, the BCH community is more than familiar with that, but you can't knock them for the progress that sounds like they've made.
Yeah, and I mean, they have some good infrastructure. I mean, they have an office there that's like the Bitcoin Jungle office, and you can like set up an appointment. It has like a number you contact over WhatsApp, and they've like integrated AI to be able to like set up your appointment and talk to you, like chat back and forth and all this stuff. And when I went in, like, they've got developers there that are like, well, at least one of the guys was, I guess, American at some point. He's not still American, but they've got like good devs there that are running things. I mean, you might have seen a few of those people on Twitter. I think one of the I think there's actually another Paul who I think has like a stronger like tech background. He might be a developer. I'm not 100% sure on that. But if I remember right, he was like from Canada or like France or something. Anyway, and then there was another developer who, kind of explained to me set up with the Lightning Network and like, the concept of like community banking and stuff, which I was familiar with. But again, a lot of these people are very sympathetic to our cause. I'm telling them like, yeah, I'm like a Bitcoin Cash guy. I'm going to be on the Bitcoin Cash podcast to like talk about this. So like, I don't want to like say anything that I shouldn't say, or, be here like under false pretenses or, anything like that. But just like, we're interested in how you're doing this. And, it's like, yeah, I mean, because usually in person, people are going to be pretty nice to you. They're going to be like, yeah, that's like not that unreasonable. On Twitter, they'll be, worse. But a lot of times, at least I'll be worse on Twitter. So, yeah, that's kind of like kind of the gist of it. But they told me that they think that they have more adoption concentration than anywhere else in the world. That was a key thing. And that includes El Salvador. Now, I'm not sure if that includes Bitcoin Beach. Really, it does sound like it. From what I remember, it includes Bitcoin Beach. Not to like knock on those guys, because again, they thought that what Bitcoin Beach was doing was awesome, but I guess they just felt very strongly about their strategy in Bitcoin Jungle is like kind of having the right tools to make it work. And some of that might just be like the fiat off-ramp infrastructure that just exists in Costa Rica and being able to leverage that. Because in El Salvador, I think they're using the dollar, if I remember right.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
And it's kind of interesting to see like the dollar dominance in some of these countries like that has taken over. Again, I'm not sure in El Salvador. I think it is. Ecuador, which I'd just come from personally, like officially, they got rid of their local currency. That's like, those are kind of interesting.
Still there, David? I don't know. Maybe we'll have to
Can you hear my
reset.
Sorry, my wife suddenly.
It looks like it's kind of back now. Maybe those people
imagine
who are in the dollar economies, like they're already going through a currency transition, or perhaps have done in the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So people already have that memory. They're not so built into this concept of this currency has always been the currency and always the way it's been and could never change, which people trying to get Bitcoin adoption encounter everywhere else in the world. Everyone just, believes that the way things were is the way things always have to be, kind of an idea. So it makes sense to me that the BTC guys are targeting these areas like Central or South America, where there's already a trend towards the dollar, and also people are more disconnected from the global economy. So there's more upside to them escaping being locked into, some new app or system or whatever, controlled way above their level to influence. So that makes sense to me. And I think it is a pretty good strategy. I haven't actually been so much to any of these places myself, although I would like to go. Do you have any thoughts on how it compared to somewhere like St. Kitts? Was there anything they were doing particularly better or worse or differently that stuck out to you, having seen those two approaches?
Them having a team there, I think, did make a pretty big difference. And like the software infrastructure, being able to have there was a lot of time, resources put into making like the Primal app work, that they use, the Bitcoin Jungle app, these payment methods, having people that like work in the office all the time. And, these people aren't there temporarily. Like, we looked at St. Kitts and, as far as we know, Sonny was there like a lot of the time, and Roger was there. I don't know that they went around to every business like Mark Falzon did, it seems like Sonny probably did, but it seems like he kind of disappeared. But Mark was there for a while, and but he didn't like stay there permanently. And the difference is like these guys have stayed there permanently, and they're developers, so they've got like the infrastructure, and they've got like a big enough team to make that work. The other guy that I didn't mention that's there is Francis, who runs something that's kind of like general protocols. It's called Bitcoin Bull. And you can.
It's called Bull Bitcoin, right? Or is that?
Sorry, maybe I got it backwards. But his name's Francis. He's like pretty popular on Twitter. I never got to meet him, but I mean, when you've got people with those kinds of resources and skills that are backing the project, it's gonna like make a pretty big difference. It would kind of be like if me, you, and Callisti and Bitcoin Jason were all in Townsville. Like, it would definitely make a big difference. I mean, I believe, not to say that like they're not doing a good job of like with the resources they have, but I think like if you've got dedicated developers and like knowledge, it just makes a big difference.
Yeah, I have thought about that actually. That's not something that we have sort of hit onto like by default, but I have often thought about, would it be a strategy that I could do where I was kind of like, I'm going to pick this little hub and move there and be on the ground and try and, change the world like directly from there. And then you would need to find, what was the best spot to do it and everything like that. And then try and convince a couple of other people. And people have sometimes joked about that, like we should all, get an island together or that kind of thing. I'm sure it would make a tremendous difference and be very impactful. There's two really big trade-offs. One is that everybody's busy. Everybody already has their own life. They already has the places they prefer to live. They already have their family, or that getting somebody to physically relocate is just an enormous step to take. So that's a hard thing to do, and that's where I've kind of hit on. Maybe I can do some local adoption at some point, but for the time being, I'm better served via the internet, really, in doing the show and in doing Celine. And then my physical concentration effort is like bliss, getting everyone into the same room temporarily rather than permanently. So that's one thing. And the other thing is that it does, in a way, reduce the decentralization, especially if you have a very small community. If you put so much time and resources into one of those hubs and then they kind of fall apart, or there's a change in the government, or something bad happened or whatever, that could be like a huge issue. So there's an element to which I'm very glad that BCH has the Philippines, we have Argentina, we have Townsville, different parts of the world, Nigeria, right, where these things, Florida a little bit, and none of those places have really got to like a critical mass where it's just sweeping and taking over everything. But they're all kind of developing their own individual little methods and things that work for the local population. That's another thing too. If we had everybody in one place, you might hit on a formula that worked brilliantly for that one place. But then when you tried to export it to somewhere else, suddenly, the culture was different, or the challenges were different, or the existing infrastructure was different, or another cryptocurrency had got there first, or whatever. So it's constantly like a balancing act to think what is the best strategy there, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, it also seems like a lot of these places where the BTC guys have been able to take off, there's not a lot of dollar dominance. Although you could say if El Salvador uses a dollar again, I think that it kind of took off there, but it seems like that's kind of dying off, in a similar way that we kind of think maybe St. Kitts is dying off, maybe, if that's right. But where there's less dollar dominance, like Costa Rica, even though they're kind of a close ally of the United States and there are a lot of Americans there, people are it seemed like people were fleeing there. So they weren't like all like choosing exactly to relocate. They were like looking for somewhere else to live. And then they're all like, well, why don't we live here? Kind of like the New Hampshire thing, where is like maybe the one example where it might have kind of worked in the US, where you have a lot of people that went to you know, these towns in New Hampshire, and then you've got like a concentration of places accepting, you know, Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash or Monero or whatever, Dash. It seems like those are kind of the more popular ones, but like generally, like cryptocurrency is like a relevant thing there. But outside of those places where these people like didn't flee to, it's like places where there's not dollar dominance. You just mentioned like the Philippines. I guess Townsville is sort of an ally, but you know they do have their own currency. And Argentina, where you know their economy was just wrecked for so many years. And now we're talking about Nigeria. I don't know what their local currency is if they have one. But those all like kind of sound like they have that in common.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's very interesting to hear about these different hubs going on because, of course, like the same with the Free State Project and the crypto adoption that goes there. You know, it's funny. You see people arguing on Twitter about this or that. But at the end of the day, we're all against this big uphill mountain to actually, in a physical place, get a concentration of people who are regularly transacting every day in cryptocurrency. Like that's a huge mountain, no matter what cryptocurrency you're doing. And ultimately, the proof is in the pudding. In a sense, I was just on one of Joel's shows talking about, Twitter Spaces, where he was talking about our conferences a scam, crypto conferences, and some of them can sort of be these scammy gambling kind of places. And my point was like at Bliss, you know, the vendors are using BCH, everybody onboards to BCH to get their ticket. Everybody transacts with each other directly in BCH. We get the hotel on board, you know, accepting BCH and so forth. And even that has been, you know, had its problems and its like issues in a way, but we've at least managed to get that much going. Like you can go to crypto conferences where people are barely even transacting in crypto among supposedly excited crypto adopters. Yeah. Right?
And I mean, I know like these Bitcoin groups too. It's like, you know, there's some people that are like, I am only a Bitcoin maximalist. I can't believe anybody else mentioned anything else. But like a lot of the people running the stuff that I've talked to, like they use other things. I'm not even knocking that. Like, I'm just saying like, it seems sort of, they're not acknowledging the reality that a lot of people are like trying different things and just seeing what works for them. And, you know, hopefully a lot of them realize that, you know, the thing that I did as a developer, it's like I came into Bitcoin Cash because I could build something that I couldn't build on BTC Bitcoin. So like, that's why I'm here. Like I recognize that, but I did come through Bitcoin. You know, I had to like kind of go down that rabbit hole and then be like, why are there these like constraints that are all messed up, and then sort of reach my own conclusions about that. Not that you guys on Twitter didn't kind of guide me there too. You know, like that was a very important part of me kind of coming over.
At the end of the day, it has to actually work. You know, that's the point, and that's kind of the problem. Like where people can grandstand about like, oh yeah, you know, I'm all in on this coin. It's going to be the solution for everything. And then like when it's like face to face, I always think it's so funny when we were in St. Kitts and, you know, there was that BTC guy there with his girlfriend, and he like found out we were just talking or something. And he was like, well, you know, what are you doing here? And I was like, oh, we're here doing this BCH conference. And he was like, BCH is a shit coin. Like it doesn't work for anything. And I was like, do you want to go? We can go over the bar, like right there, like literally within eyesight, you know, let's go over there right now. We'll buy something with BCH. Like I'll show you how it works. And he like, his mind like just melted. Like he could not comprehend that. He was like, no, BCH is a shit coin. Like it's not adopted anywhere. And I was like, I'm here with you right now. I have my wallet. Look, here it is. Let's go buy something in BCH. And he was like, no. Like lightning is the answer or whatever. It's just like, you know, it really hits up. Like it's very easy when the person is not standing in front of you, you know, like, let's go, let's see it happen. And also the reverse, right? Obviously that's a situation where I know what I'm doing. And I, you know, this situation is a bit engineered because he happened to unwittingly be in a situation that was perfect to that. But it works the other way as well too, which is where if you're there and the other person like doesn't really know what's going on, and you try to tell them like Bitcoin is the future, and then you try and onboard them to Lightning Network and they get an error or a bug and it doesn't work, then it's like super embarrassing. You know, it's all the Twitter grandstanding in the world just doesn't make up for those moments. So whichever community can actually consistently just produce a working experience that everyday people who are not ideological, are just like, this works, will obviously win out, right? And I think that's going to be BCH, but we'll see. BCH has a pretty good record when it comes down to the amount of shit we talk versus, you know, what we're delivering. I think BCH stacks up pretty nicely. You notice that a lot when you get out there in the real world. But that's just my observation. Obviously, I'm biased, right?
Yeah. Although, I mean, the thing we kind of, I mean, I hate to like, you know, kind of look backwards, but like the thing that Roger mentioned a few times, and I think in the interview with you guys, was that like Bitcoin was like ahead of the credit card companies, and they were like not catching up from a user experience perspective, and it's like was just rapidly catching on. But not increasing the block size like allowed the credit card companies, and then introducing these things like SegWit, and introducing you know, replaced by fee, and you know, these different things that kind of slowed down their progress like dramatically, so that the credit card companies caught up. And now people are like, oh, you know, I can already tap to pay, you know, I already use my credit card like that. Like, why would I switch to this thing? This thing doesn't seem like it's easier. And because it's not like, I mean, it's sort of the thing that Elon Musk says. It's like, it doesn't just have to be like a little bit better. It has to be a lot better. And it was a lot better. But again, this is why it's catching on in places like Argentina, and I think we've seen some things in Venezuela too, like that are just known for having terrible currencies. It's like, it's not a little bit better there; it's a lot better, and that's where having something like MUSD becomes like super powerful, and especially if you can allow people to, you know, gain exposure to other sorts of assets like you know, the S&P 500 that they might not have access to. BCH Bull and already doing that kind of is revolutionary. How are we looking?
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, that's basically spot on. It does have to be a lot better. It has to be 10x better, and hopefully. No, it's still there. I'm hearing you. Yeah, it does have to be a lot better. It can't just be, you know, 5x better. Even it needs to be 10x better, and ideally 100x better. And that's where the sort of store of value thing has merit, in the sense that BTC, with its enormous price gains, was just a lot better than having your money in stocks or gold or bonds or US dollars or whatever. And that's why so many people have responded to it so strongly, even if they couldn't really see the bigger picture, that you still need to be able to tie this together with a medium of exchange. And that's where I feel like you say, giving more access to other kinds of assets. People are still impressed with Selene Wallet, you know, when I onboard them, because I just say, hey, download this. I have my phone ready to scan. I send them, you know, I mean, I could even set it to InstaSend, but I don't. I show them, here, look, I'm about to send you $1 of BCH, and it pops up on their phone, and they are like, oh, wow, because there was no sign up, there was no registration, it happens instantly. All those things do still get a bit of a reaction, because if they're expecting it to be like a bank app, they don't need a password, they don't need a login or whatever. But the 10x advantage is going to come from, yeah, and look at this other assets tab where you can just instantly get into any other asset you want at the same time, you know, and look at all these privacy features. And like, that's the stuff that we have to do to get ahead, because the banks are going to, like, they've managed to catch up on a lot of the superficial UX stuff, but the deeper layer stuff, they're going to have a hell of a time catching up to us on. And that's kind of where we've got to find that edge, I think.
Yeah. I mean, the only like really big opportunity that I see in the US is something that's like kind of got regulation around it that people are kind of dabbling in, but like sort of afraid of. Seems like sports betting. I see a lot of people like
prediction
trying to like skirt regulations. I'm not like super familiar. I don't think I've really ever placed any sports bets.
You're missing out.
Yeah, right. I did consider betting on track and field, because I felt like the lines for like some of the races that I watched, the distance races, were just like totally wrong, and they just had no idea like who, like what someone's actual chances are in a race like that. Like basically like the favorite just can't win. There's like, if people are trying to like take that person out of the running, like, and like box them in and like not like let them, get enough space that they need to win, like they can pretty much make sure that it's impossible for that person. And it seems like the people who make the betting lines don't really understand that, but that's like a whole nother issue. Having sports betting at all, like in cryptocurrency, and it seems like, like Polymarket and some of these other websites that like allow this, like, all these different kinds of bets, like the presidential election and like, will the Dow be over 45,000 or something? When I see things like that, I'm like, okay, that's like really interesting, because that's starting to give people some exposure to some of, these financial markets in what I think is a decentralized way, but maybe it's not as decentralized as I think it is. Maybe they're required to take things down from time to time. I'm not really sure. But as far as I can tell, BCH Bull is like, totally anarchist, in like the purest sense, which is,
on that, let's just skip ahead a little bit then to, we've got a slide here, Q4 releases, which is that the BCH does seem like it's going to ramp up massively. BCH Guru have pre-announced their events prediction markets and sort of semi-promised that it's going to be coming out in October. I have on the slide here, they said the very first big reveal, and there are many reveals, is to say BCH Guru events will not run like Polymarket, where users buy and sell yes/no shares in tokens. It works akin to a direct peer-to-peer betting exchange and marketplace. Think of it as a non-custodial Betfair, where odds are set directly by anyone wishing to act as liquidity providers for the event. Market makers and event predictors, takers, take the odds available to them, end quote. So that is kind of exactly what you're talking about. That would be more like a BCH Bull style thing. And I'm so excited because obviously they have been around for a long time as well too, BCH Gurus, but a lot of it has been just building behind the scenes, because even though their releases have been very slick and very well done, they've also been kind of few and far between, and they're now gearing up for apparently some of these big releases. So that is exactly the kind of thing that if BCH can get in the game with prediction markets and more of that non-custodial smart contract based betting that's all collateralized and all that, scam proof essentially, or at least minimized, then we can get that into Selene and we can start making that available to people. Like that is where the edge is gonna come from. It's not just them. Mathieu has also said Parity USD is coming this quarter in Q4. I've been talking about the next Selene release coming out this month is going to have MUSD stablecoin mode, so that people can just transact directly in MUSD and they can send or receive from any BCH address or wallet, and the conversions just happen in the background, kind of as you'd expect, depending on your own preferences. We've got Blaze coming up. I know XO.cash is also coming out at some point this quarter, at least in an early format. And the Moria team have been talking about their deep mint, which will then enable them to put in massive liquidity from whales, because it will uncap the size of the loans people can take. So between all of this, and this is just the stuff that's been kind of already announced to the public, this is a lot of announcements rather than a lot of delivery, but this is all coming from reputable people that I think are going to follow through. So I'm feeling like BCH is in a great spot going into Q4, and it's only going to ramp up in 2026. What do you think? I
mean, I didn't read that slide beforehand. I think I just kind of looked over it, and I definitely didn't read that message you had in there. That really does sound game changing. I really had no idea. I'm glad I gave us a good intro into that. I have been following the Selene stuff. I didn't even realize that had been announced with the MUSD. I'd just been kind of following it through the repository. But yeah, that sounds also like really game changing. I mean, I don't know exactly what's coming with XO.cash, but I mean, that's from General Protocols, right? So like they always deliver.
Yes.
And Blaze like coming out, like, I mean, yeah, more stable coins. I think, and Guru, just like the BCH Guru is something I hadn't really used. So because I was like, I don't really want to like speculate on like which way the price is moving. I feel like that's a good way to get burned, and so I kind of avoided it. But if it becomes more like, price prediction and like, a peer-to-peer version, like, I mean, maybe a peer-to-peer version of Polymarket, is that like the wrong way to think of? Do they not want me to think of it that way? Because they're saying not Polymarket.
No, it will. I think it will be like Polymarket in the way that you can bet on events. So it will be similar in that sense, but it will not be like it at a technical level in terms of Polymarket. There's a yes and a no token. So you're buying up that token. And then if, yes is going true, the price of that token goes from 50 cents to $1. And if no is, wrong, then it is correct, then it goes from 50 cents to 0. Or the no token goes to $1 and the yes token goes to 0, right? So that's kind of one way that I guess they could do it. Like they could build a sort of cash tokens type solution around that. And they've said that they're going to elaborate on this as time goes on. Their idea is to do it more like the any hedge contracts, where somebody puts in the long position, somebody puts in the short position, and then the contract just pays out more to one side or the other. So for 100% that the money is already there. And also potentially some people will be able to be market makers where they can offer yes contracts on one side and no contracts on the other side. And if they overlap, the odds, they will be able to get a small profit from matching both sides of the order book, so that people can get in at any position or at a good size without problems. And then those people are making a small profit from doing it. So it's providing a market incentive to actually drive liquidity. And if there's something that's very rare that not a lot of people would want to bet on, those people would still be able to fill out an order book for people who wanted to bet on that side of it. So that's, I think yeah, I mean, sounds really awesome. We'll wait and see when they release it, but I'm sure they've thought about it deeply. That's what they were saying. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like at the app, the application, which I guess this is the application level. I'm like thinking it's not. To me, like the application level is like way simpler than this. I mean, I guess we're going to get into some things that I've worked on, but it's like not this technical. But it's incredible to be like a user of this, to be able to like, okay, like I can still like possibly invest in things and like, or invest in something that has some exposure to stocks without needing to have a Robinhood account that can be seized by the government. I think that's something that's, maybe has crossed a lot of our minds. Like, can they just straight up seize our bank accounts? Well, with this, they won't be able to. So
exactly, liberating the economy from the overreach of the government. You mentioned a little bit about what you've been working on. So I have a slide here of Cracker Barrel. So this was last time you were on the show. I didn't actually go back and check, but I'm sure we would have talked about it, where you had made a way for people to pay in BCH at Cracker Barrel. For people who don't know, including me, outside of the US, Cracker Barrel is this very popular, large chain of kind of family dinner type of restaurants, right? And you had made an app so that people could pay in BCH and sort of somehow automatically get it converted through a credit card to pay. So talk to me a little bit about how that's going. And also, they were recently in a large controversy that politically involved people might be aware of, where they sort of did this rebranding under their CEO from this old guy, the cracker, I guess, sitting next to his barrel, right? And it says Old Country Store, this kind of old-timey logo, to this new, modern, kind of blandified version, which got huge pushback because I guess all the dedicated Cracker Barrel people who'd been going to the store for 50 years or whatever were like, why are we making it crap, and removing all personality from it. So they got even pushback from Donald Trump as well as other people, and eventually had to sort of collapse on their planned rebrand and revert back to the old one. So given that you were Mr. Cracker Barrel, I'm very interested to hear your take on this political part of it as well too. But how have things been going with spending BCH at Cracker Barrel?
Well, that was basically my hackathon project coming out of the St. Kitts conference, and just going to Cracker Barrel and just sort of noticing that something like that could be possible. What I didn't anticipate was that their website can just constantly change. I mean, I did sort of anticipate that, but I thought it would be like relatively stable. And there were just kind of like enough issues. I was like, I cannot continue this as a service. This is, it has like a lot of risks, just like from a copyright perspective. And, and just for a lot of reasons, I'm like, I don't feel like the way I'm doing this, at least, is like decentralized enough to work. Now it could work maybe in like a more decentralized way where you have like the ability to like pick up orders and like verify them through emails and things like that. But it was not a project that, I mean, considering like the level of use, I was surprised. Like when I would see people use it, I was like, oh, that person's in Pennsylvania, that person's in Ohio, this person's in, I don't know, like New Hampshire. And then, like these people are really far away from me. And I would see people go on and use it, but it just like wasn't quite the level of usage that I felt like justified the kind of effort that was involved. Unfortunately, now, like maybe some people argue that was a bad decision, but yeah, I kind of like had to abandon that project.
How many people did use it? Like you say, there was different people using it around, and given that it didn't have like extreme promotion, I mean, I know you came and talked about it on this show, and however else you've talked about it and promoted it, but it's not like you had a brand where you were pushing it all the time, and these things take time to get traction. So I'm glad to hear that people were picking it up. They were obviously excited about it, even with very minimal outreach. Like, what kind of traction did it get? Nope, we're going to see if David reconnects here in a minute. Might have to repeat my question. Jed has also abandoned the stream. This is the pitfalls of.
Anybody can hear me?
All right, we can hear you now. Go on. Tell me about your traction.
So, like I was starting to get into. My dad used it once a week. So that helped a lot to have a consistent test user. And outside of him going all the time, which again was a huge help, I might have had maybe 50 to 100 users use it across the country. Again, it like surprised me when I would see people using it. But there was also a guy up in the Northeast, I think it was like in Ohio or something. And he actually like organized meetups in different states where they would get together and use the Cracker Barrel app. So that was kind of cool. Like that gave me some extra, like an extra few people. Now, usually his meetups weren't like super big, but I was like, man, that's like pretty cool. Guy making hardware projects. Gosh, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Because I like spent a good amount of time talking to him, but it was like, Aaron, thank you. When you would like, he had this thing set up with like an Arduino or something. When you paid the QR code, it would like turn on a green light bulb. It was like this like hilarious like kind of like, I don't know, like retro kind of setup. But he was really passionate about it. Had a good time talking to him, and cool that he like got some people together for me to like get together and use it. And even after that, I think someone tweeted at me recently and said like, hey, I like was thinking it would be online. I'm here at Cracker Barrel and there's no way for me to use it. Like, I'm like, yeah, sorry, I shut it down like a year ago. So people still have kind of reached out to me, but maybe if there's an opportunity to work with Cracker Barrel directly, I would be happy to. I'm just hoping to not get a legal threat.
Well, this sounds like your Blaze project this year then is you can get involved, you can resurrect it. Like 50 to 100 users, that's not nothing. Getting one user is hard enough. Like, even if it is your dad just trying it to like support you, that's still, your parents still lose interest after a little while. But if you got 50 or 100 users, including people that you don't know, who you haven't contacted and stuff, that shows that there was a genuine desire for the product. And maybe it just wasn't a priority. Of course, like anything, it takes an enormous amount of work, not only to create, but to maintain and grow it. But that sounds to me like the kind of thing you could definitely resurrect if you were prepared to take it seriously. Of course, like, not necessarily much point going through the whole cycle of building up something, but maybe this time, you would just have slightly different strategy. Maybe talk to Cracker Barrel directly, pitch them on the idea, say that it was really popular. Maybe they would be actually willing to support it as kind of like a niche experiment at one of their branches, maybe even near you or something like that. I mean, with cryptocurrency growing in popularity all the time, increasingly, even large businesses are going to be open to at least thinking like, let's dabble in the water with this. And if you already got the proof that it would kind of work and you have a special affinity for that brand, you can tell them about, what's the name, Steak Shack or Shake and Steak, whatever. Right. Doing it, you could, it seems like a lot of the things are lining up if you wanted to take another run at it.
Yeah. I mean, the only issue with, those like working with them directly is, like this year, it's like, okay, yeah, we get to set up and, you can accept, even like best case scenario, Bitcoin Cash only. But then it's like, hey, there's a new administration and now there has to be KYC in front of it. And we might have like kind of destroyed our ability to do this in a decentralized way, because like, it is somewhat centralized because we're going through like, like someone's credit card to be able to settle the transaction, but at least someone can kind of leverage, like someone has an opportunity to leverage their banking system access that other people might not have. And settle people's orders for Cracker Barrel. And the other reason I picked it was because it was actually like relatively affordable compared to other restaurants. So like there is kind of an argument for the use case there. But the amount of maintenance it was requiring for, I mean, yes, it was 50 users, but it was like, let's just say best case, it was 100. It didn't seem like they were super consistent, like there would be like long stretches where there was like no one. And so I was like, okay, maybe like for the amount of maintenance that I'm having to do, like if it has to break twice, if it breaks twice and I have to fix it like in between, like
every user,
like anyone using it, it's like, then maybe it's not the right, like level of effort. Like it's just the juice isn't worth the squeeze, I guess.
But there would be ways around that, saying that, like, part of the maintenance burden was undoubtedly because they didn't know that you were doing it. So if they were just changing the endpoints on their website every day or something like that, then that's just screwing you over and they're not knowing about it. So if it was somewhat, sanctioned, or you were in contact with them, that would lower the maintenance burden there too. And then there is always an element of course, when you're starting up a new project, the amount of effort massively outweighs the sort of utility to end users. But the idea is, of course, as the user base grows, it's kind of like fixed versus variable cost. Your maintenance burden is either mostly a fixed cost, or maybe it only slightly grows with the number of users, but the utility across, regular users, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of users, it scales nicely, right? So, I can see it working as well. Even if you were worried about those things, the KYC and whatever, like you said, maybe you could somehow structure it as a marketplace, so you could make it open to whoever did want to take the risk. And maybe there's someone out there who's in a different situation to you, maybe incentivized somehow. Maybe they could add a commission fee. I don't know, whatever. Like, sounds like if you really thought about it, maybe there could be a way to structure it slightly differently to take advantage of the properties of crypto.
Yeah, or like maybe a way to allow people to, not only pay for Cracker Barrel, but pay for like other things on behalf of other people that allow for this kind of thing, like a Bitcoin pizza kind of transaction. It's like, okay, yeah, I'll buy that pizza for you over the internet and just ship it to you, which happened like 10 miles from where I am. So, or at least that's where the pizza was made. Yeah, I mean, like there is definitely some potential there. And there are like some services out there that all, like the problem that I've run into was that sometimes if you pay like a QR code with a credit card, the charge can be like increased later. But the benefit to Cracker Barrel is that like anytime you changed it, they always had to like change the QR code. And so that didn't break my system. So people couldn't just like, oh, it's $10 and like now your card's charged $200, you know? But there are other places where they can change based on the QR code. But I have found services that allow you to create virtual credit cards and set specific limits and like, you know, can only be used at this merchant and stuff like that. Called privacy.com if you're interested. You know, you have to like KYC and everything, but it could potentially facilitate a service like that.
And what do you make of this rebranding and the pushback they got from that? I don't know anything about Cracker Barrel. I've never been, except for the one time that I talked to you about it. I'd only heard about it. And then when I saw this come up and all the pushback and everyone getting salty in the culture wars about, you know, dumbing down people's brands, and there is just overall a bit of a trend which might need to reverse. Like it feels like a bit of a cultural pendulum where people do those comparisons where they have all the like internet company logos and car brands and stuff, fashion brands from the 2000s, and increasingly in 2020 everybody's just going to like that slim kind of font with just the name, no graphic, no nothing kind of unique. Everything's becoming very sort of monoculture, monochrome as well. Like in terms of cars, you know, the number of car sales of different colors is all decreasing. It's all just like black, white, gray increasingly, right? And that gets to a point where everything is super, you know, bland. And then hopefully there'll be a revival where people start thinking, oh, well, we can be colorful and stand out with something a bit unique. So this seemed to me like people were kind of like, look, that trend is over. Like, leave us the old, you know, more intricate one. What do you make of it?
I mean, like the logo thing is not that big of a deal to me. Like they were trying to take out like, I don't know, white people or something. I didn't get the feel from that. Now, when they like started taking stuff out of there, like I'm not sure if you know this about Cracker Barrel, but they have like, they're one of the few restaurants that have like a store in the front of it. That's why it says like Old Country Store. And they sell all these like, I don't know, just like random stuff,
T-shirts
like
and whatever,
toys and candy and like, T-shirts. But for a while they were selling like, I mean, if I'm remembering right, they were selling like Confederate stuff.
Okay, all right.
And they got rid of that, and I feel like that's what should like upset people, that like they didn't want to have, I don't know, the Confederate flag anymore. Or maybe I don't know, maybe that's like an extreme example, but like there were certain things that like kind of identified with that culture that they just removed. That, I mean, it wasn't even anything like necessarily offensive, although you could say the Confederate flag is kind of offensive to some people. I don't know. But anyway, I feel like this trend's been going on for a long time, and like the logo is just like, I don't know why everyone freaked out over the logo, but everything else, like they should have made a big deal about. So, I mean, from my perspective, I'm just wanting them to flip the barrel and the cracker. So we've got the BC, and if they just add an H, it'll be, man, there's in this thing about us. Like, yeah, we want the Bitcoin Cash for Cracker Barrel.
Yeah, that could be perfect. You're right, exactly. So that's it. I mean, I don't know, what's going on with Cracker Barrel or all this outrage. I just thought it was an interesting case of, firstly, those design trends that I'm aware of, and then secondly, also just kind of this idea of like cultural erosion and so forth, which is also very relevant to cryptocurrency. You know, every different cryptocurrency is constantly sort of evolving. There's always that push and pull between, okay, do we stick with sort of the original values and all that versus do we have to be a bit flexible or change things up in terms of actually, you know, getting adoption or in response to the changing world. It's a very thorny issue at times, but you just see little mirrors of it, little pockets of it all over culture and society the more you look for it.
I'm wondering if I should mention this person's name, but there was like a person who you probably would have heard of, who I like told about this, like this Cracker Barrel, Bitcoin Cash for Cracker Barrel. And he said, like that's such a good idea. Like, because Cracker Barrel like specifically represents white culture, which, to be honest, he wasn't like the first person I would think of to say this. And I don't want to embarrass him or anything, but anyway, like when you think about that, like the fact that our culture has kind of been eroded, you know, it does like it does make you think about different ways to help like protect it. So
yeah. I mean, there's plenty of political shows and stuff. This is not really the show for that, but it's certainly an interesting trend, and I think it's something people should be keeping an eye on, because ultimately, everything kind of comes back to politics. One way or another, as much as people want to pretend, and I've always said on the show, people want to pretend, like some people say with BTC especially, oh, it's perfectly not political, it's all merit-based, it's all game theory and incentive alignment and stuff like that. That's completely fake. Like, of course, everything in cryptocurrency is run by people, and those people have opinions, and so their opinions then spread onto the other people involved and or influence the work they do, the things they choose to work on, the things they choose to fund, etc. So ultimately, we do just have to be involved in the politics of the world, as much as some people would prefer not to be. Speaking of which, that's a perfect segment to the BTC consensus fork, question mark. We've been seeing some very interesting moves over there with our cousins in BTC land recently. Of course, we've covered on this show before the Knots Brigade and their futile struggle to try and overcome the hijacking of their chain, which they now actually pretty openly accept. It's actually quite incredible that 1 year ago, all the same people that now would say, oh, there's been a hijacking and BTC is being undermined and all that. 12 months ago, they would have told you that was a big block of conspiracy theory, but they now completely believe it, just not the version that we are telling them. In any case, they have been struggling with the upcoming release of V30, which has now been released. So on September 25th, there was some text leak from Luke Dasher, or Dash Jr., or whatever, where he was sort of semi-alluding to the fact, they're on the slides there, Jet can maybe just show them briefly, that he was thinking of ways using zero-knowledge proofs to maybe fork out of the chain or somehow sanitize or something any sort of undesirable materials that had made it in there. So that had kind of caused a stir, as it was sort of like the guys who consistently say, we're not going to do a consensus fork, this is not what it's about, we just want to change the filters, were then starting to have kind of second thoughts about it. And just 2 days ago on Friday, the much anticipated Core V30 has been released, and it did include both the changes to uncap the op returns and to 100 kilobytes, or 100,000 bytes, 100 kilobytes, and also as well to lower the minimum relay floor from 1 sat per vbyte to 0.1 per vbyte, which are the two things causing consternation about so-called spamming. Now, just a couple of hours before the show went live, we also had Matthew Cratter with the Bitcoin University YouTube channel put up a video where he begins to suggest discussing some soft fork consensus changes to cap op return to 83 bytes or remove it or whatever, which is signaling a shift in the Overton window. Of course, anybody who's followed the show will know that we said right from the beginning that this was inevitable, and they were going to, at some point, figure out that they had been not only hijacked, but that if they wanted to do something about it, they would need to make a consensus change after 5-6 months of clear denial about that. It seems the winds are changing and they're starting to catch on. At this point, it's only about a soft fork in consensus, but of course, as time goes on, I will easily predict, firstly, that they will discover that soft forks are not are like can be chain splits. You can have a soft fork, which is also a chain split, just like you can have a hard fork, which is a chain split, and you can have a soft or a hard fork, which is not a chain split. So they're going to have to get over their propaganda that hard forks are chain splits and soft forks are not, because that's false. But secondly, to that, they're also going to have to wend their way through, well, we want to do this change, but we need it to be in consensus, but there's a large group of people that completely don't agree with us and they already have control of Bitcoin Core. How are we going to convince everyone to get on the same page with our change that is a minority opinion? What do you make of all this? Have you been following the BTC drama closely, first of all? And secondly, what do you make of these latest developments in terms of consensus changes finally coming onto the menu for the Knots Brigade?
I mean, I can't say that I have a ton of exposure to it. I read some of the things that you guys say about it. Also have some friends that are in like a local Bitcoin group that I'm involved with, and some other friends that run Bitcoin groups outside of like in other cities. I know they go to conferences and stuff. It's like, there are enough people talking at conferences and like handing out T-shirts and stuff that like I could see like that kind of getting around over time. It's like it's the cool thing to run Knots, and now it's like the cool thing to, I don't know, do whatever like hard fork thing they're thinking about lately. I don't know. Like I also wasn't around for like the 2017 fork wars, or block size wars, whatever you want to call it. So I feel like I don't really have that much exposure to this to be able to like give a lot of like thoughtful commentary, but I don't know, as an outsider, as a developer, it is kind of interesting to see like how they go about this and how they like slowly introduce kind of, what you're talking about. It's like, oh, all hard forks are bad, but we've got to like backtrack that now. And we've got to like make some propaganda. We got to like put it on T-shirts. We got to do something. And now these like didn't know about these text messages either. That all,
I mean, it's all very insider drama. Like that's a lot of what is going on here as well too. In a way, the 1% of people, or the 0.1% of people, maybe even, who are right down the rabbit hole and are arguing about this all day, every day, you can kind of make the case of, well, at the end of the day, 99.9% of people don't care. So things are just going to go in whatever is the simplest and easiest direction because they don't follow this. So there's an element of that. But there's also an element the other way around, which is the 0.1% of people who spend all day caring about it and so forth are the ones who ship the clients and who then go on the big influencer channels and whatever and say, this is how it is. And then everyone else who doesn't really know just kind of go, all right, that's how it is now. We're going along in this direction. So it cuts both ways, that the very small minority in one hand is kind of powerless sometimes, and on the other hand, sometimes it's the deciding factor. So both things can be true. I'm wondering if Jet might be a bit under the weather, or if you want to give a thought on this, given that we've been following this drama on the show for so long, as to what you make of this new ideas about consensus changes coming onto the radar. Oh, you're super quiet. Can't really hear you.
Yeah, my bad. I'm really curious to see if any fork actually happens, because like that was the thing that I just couldn't see. Like, oh, there's going to be all this talk and then it'll fizzle out and nothing will happen. And I still like feel that a little bit, but I also think like the social friction has gotten to a point where, maybe people split off just to be like, fuck you guys.
But that's the thing, like that's still not enough. That's the funniest thing about it, is that they've kind of drawn, it's a problem with drawing red lines. I mean, if you never draw a red line, then you're too easily bullied, right? You can always just be pushed back if you have no line in the sand where you're going to put up some resistance. But on the other hand, once you draw a red line and you get pushed over it, you have to bite. Otherwise, people learn that you're just going to be a walkover, right? And that was the problem, exactly like we've explained on this show, was that Mechanic and Luke and etc. have been really vocal about when V30 goes out, if these changes are in, it's over. BTC is dead. All the nodes are gonna shut down because of these virus scanners. People will find malware in the chain and they won't want to host Bitcoin nodes. There'll be child porn in the chain, so then we can't, do anything. Blah blah blah. Like it's all just going to be this huge disaster, which was just mostly fear mongering. Although it is true, they're hitting on a good point that Bitcoin Core's changes are the wrong direction and that they're being implemented without sort of their buy-in. But that's just a hard lesson for them in where power is really located, which they wanted to ignore from the BCH community telling them that for a decade. So they are now in this situation of the core release has gone out. They didn't, walk it back. They made a small concession where they changed the comments about whether it was deprecated. So the flag is no longer technically deprecated, but they will still, of course, remove it as soon as they, things have moved on and people are distracted with something else. So they're going to have a lot of problems in that regard. But now they're over that red line. So it's like, what do? They've now caught on to this idea of, okay, maybe we need to make a consensus change. But in a way, it's a little bit late because now if they say we're going to do a consensus change or a split or whatever, firstly, the core changes are already in. And secondly, they've dug themselves in so much that they were not going to do a consensus change that now they'll just lose so much credibility. It'll be so easy to criticize. Like, when the guys that were telling us you were never going to do a consensus change and you just wanted to change the filters and now you've completely backtracked on all of that. It's a mess.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what mental gymnastics are going to be deployed as well, because there was also, I remember one of the criticisms, I think very valid criticisms about BCH early on was like, you can't just have a chain that exists to be like, fuck you.
That's
like,
spiteful. Yeah.
Yeah. So what the hell? Like, okay, so if they do fork and they say, no, it's not because of social tension, it's because we want to make these technical changes. Why would I buy the tokens on your chain if the technical changes mean I'm more limited in what I can do on that chain than the one that's already existed?
Yes, that's right. It doesn't and this is why they're not going to want to talk about it, because now they've got past we're never going to do a consensus thing. Okay, that was completely fake, and they finally, embarrassingly going to have to concede that point, or they have to just shut up about it and just accept, quote unquote, it's over and sort of rage quit out of the scene entirely, which was one of the options that we presented to them 6 months ago. But anyway, assuming that at least Matthew Cratter will see what Luke and Mechanic and others sort of come to agreement on, given that they say, okay, maybe a consensus change is the only way to fight this, they're kind of out of the frying pan into the fire, because that's another fake belief, is then they're going to have to realize, wait, how do we do a consensus change when not everybody is quote unquote in consensus? They're going to say, we're going to do a consensus change, but only if everyone agrees. And that will be the new line for several months, probably, until they realize everybody is not going to agree. It's simply not going to happen. There is always going to be some people, whether ignorant or malicious or naive, or just have different economic incentives to them or a different view of Bitcoin, one way or another. If they want what they think of as best for BTC, they're going to have to do a chain split. They're going to have to do it their way. There is no slowly getting everyone, quote unquote, in consensus to fight what they think is spam and other people think of as the best way to use BTC. So between those two, that will be the next thing. So we're going to be in for probably 3 to 6 months of them figuring out that one. And then they'll finally get to the stage of, okay, so if we want it to be the way we want to do it, should we do a consensus split on our own BCH style? And then we will finally have our own chain, but we're also going to get dumped on by, 18 out of 19 million BTC. Our price is going to go to zero, and we're going to have to put in a decade of work to be like the BCH guys already are. So it only gets worse from here, lads. Sorry to say it, but I'm glad you've got one step further along the journey. But I'm not optimistic for the mental sanity of the Knots crowd over the next 6 months for sure.
Well, the people who don't agree with them are terrorists. As long as you take that approach, you should be able to demonize the
the problem is that that's just not really an option in Bitcoin. Like, of course, you can paint the people against you as the bad guys, which inevitably every side does, but that's just words. Like, at the end of the day, you can't take away their hashing power, you can't switch off their nodes, you can't take away their UTXOs, which means they would have coins to dump on you if you split off. You can't, revoke their access to the Bitcoin core repository if they don't agree with you. The best you can do is, have knots or split off your own version. But then you've got to get the whole market. And it's the whole market. That's not even the node runners. They've been so excited about getting to 20% of the node runners, which is A, nowhere near enough. And B, we knew that wouldn't be enough because we had the Bitcoin Classic case that we already, it's already happened before, even though they didn't want to listen to that. But C, getting the node runners is not enough. You've got to get all the exchanges to buy in that you have the more credible dev team, you have the more credible pathway forward, that you should get the exchange ticker, you have to get all the miners, you have to get all the investment money, you have to get all the developers, all the, wallet infrastructure and the, Fulcrum servers and everything. You've got to get all of that basically on your side before you're going to have a credible claim to actually the BTC ledger and ticker and everything that has most of the value. Otherwise, you're in for a world of hurt.
I just can't imagine another coin being created, like there's BTC knots now or something or whatever the other
Holy
one is.
Bitcoin. Yeah, I don't know. I still feel like, I agree. I don't think they're actually going to have the balls to do a chain split. I mean, part of the reason it's a non-starter on two fronts. Like, one is that they know it would go badly. So it's already a bad move just because they understand that they're going to get wrecked if they do it. And then, because then there's really no way back. Then what do? You give up on your fork and you come back to the main thing with your tail between your legs. And for the rest of the time, like the Bcashes never came back. That's why we're still sovereign, like we never had to go back. We were just like ride or die, baby. Can you imagine if we had to go back? Like, some of those ordinals guys found their way in through the back door, but we, like, can you imagine? Oh, I was a big blocker for a while, but you'd have no credibility ever at that point, right?
Is there any vocal?
Oh, you're real quiet again.
Did it again as soon as I started talking. I was like, shit. Is there any vocal BCHer that has gone back to BTC?
No, as far as I know, not really. There's only the full round trip. There's people went into BCH. Some people like Mike Hearn or other people, Jeff Garzik or whatever, went to Ethereum or rage quit or went into BCH. The only thing is people who've then gone to like BSV and then like Ryan X Charles, and now he's even got his own altcoin, so he isn't even back into BTC, but he's kind of like round tripping it back into BTC, sort of, but not really. It's like a one-way exit. It's because once you know that it's hijacked, it's never going to be peer-to-peer electronic cash. If that was your original reason to be in it, you never think, oh, actually they were kind of right. You just think, well, the price went up, but nothing's changed. So there you go. Yeah, that's the drama this week for everybody who's been loving our segments on that. So stay tuned for whenever Bitcoin Mechanics' next podcast is. Gosh, that's going to be a banger. I cannot wait to see whether he has a moment of clarity, which is possible. He could have a rage quit. He could have a new level of cope and delusion. He could rework some of it, but kind of double down on other bits. I don't know. We're going to wait and see. That rests in his hands. Okay. Well, we've already hit about 2 hours. So maybe, we have this one meme of the week, I think. Is a pretty good one. This one was from a little while ago, but I've held it over show to show. It's Callisti had got this meme of the tug of war meme where one guy is pulling the rope and then he's joined by another guy, which surprises him because it's not who he expected. And then there's the panel of the other two guys on the other side, one of whom is the Monopoly man, like rich corporation guy. And then it goes back to the first guy being like, what's going on? And it's such a great meme because it perfectly encapsulates kind of politics and strange bedfellows where people suddenly end up on the same side of an issue as people that they weren't expecting. We made a version of that, which is the Bitcoin knots pulling the rope, and then the BCH people suddenly pop up next to him. And then on the other side, it's Bitcoin SV, and the money guy is Blockstream, and like having captured BTC Core, and then it's like the knots guy, like, huh? And I think that really just kind of summarizes it, really, that for the knots people, I don't know how they've found themselves in this situation where they're like, we want a peer-to-peer electronic cash system and we don't want data on-chain spam or whatever. And like, we agree with them about that. But then the ones who disagree are the ordinals guys, the Bitcoin SV people who just say, fuck it, like just uncap op return, just put it all in there. And then Blockstream, who of course hijacked it and pretend like there's nothing they could do to change the situation. Although that said, Adam Back has been muddying the waters, but Samson Mao has already been implanted into the knots crowd. He's made loads of pro knots stuff so that he will be, you know, the viper in the nest if they ever need him to cause any grief in the future. So yeah, anyway, I don't know. This made me laugh. David, Jed, yeah. The memes will continue until education improves. It is what it is. Okay, message to the community. David, what does the BCH community need to hear?
Just keep building, keep working on things. Try to find that motivation. Trying to find that motivation right now. But you know, we go in cycles. I remember Callisti kind of talking about how he was kind of going through it at one point. So you know, try to get in it, be part of what's happening.
All right. Love it. Okay. Our FundMe contributors from episodes 156 to 165, Majumali Marcelo, Jeremy is made of whatever profits are made of, Molecular, the show we love, at Cash Stamps, keep building and broaching, Erdogan Talk, Economics Writer, Big Hair, love the show, love your hair, Milton Friedman, Purely Peer, purelypeer.cash, discover the thrill of quest hunting, find hidden cash drops and collect BCH, Ryan Giffen, keep it up, boys, DGN and FurQ, fresh hardcore BCH rap anthem coming at you, the Green Comeback Kids, get it at https://nwb.cash, Cash Dragon, pump it up. Thank you also to our donators and our patrons, Ricky and Kyle, and HP. Actually, need to add him back on the slide. He renewed his subscription. And the sponsors, General Protocols. Check out bchbull.com. Thank you all for listening. Definitely pay attention to BCH Blaze. The information session, to reiterate, will be Saturday, 18th of October from 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. UTC here on the BCH podcast channel. So check in on that. If you are going to be part of Blaze, go to bchblaze.cash, go to the Dora Hacks, sign up and be part of it, because somebody's got to save Bitcoin. It's got to be us. So let's crack on with it. All right. Any final words, last thoughts or shout outs, David?
Cool to see Ryan on the list. Haven't seen Ryan in a long time. Enjoy his videos. Obviously enjoy what you guys are making. Selene Wallet and just everything. A buddy of mine offered to send me some Bitcoin Cash in exchange for promoting a thing that he's making, and he tried to buy it off Coinbase, and then they said you can't send anything for 10 days because you have to wait for approval or whatever. So don't let that be you.
Yeah.
Make your withdrawals. BCH Bank Run.
Hell yes. But next BCH Bank Run will be on Wednesday. So everybody should be ready to roll for that. And yeah, shout out to Ryan. Actually, he will, of course, be making an appearance back on the show for the Christmas episode, which he has a regular slot on. So everyone will be able to find out what he has been up to. And of course, you can go check his channel on YouTube, Ryan Gifford. He's been putting up some announcements and videos there as well too. Busy guy. I don't know how he does it, to be honest. But yeah, he's an overperformer. And Jet, any final shout outs?
I guess. Oh my God, am I really loud this time? Okay.
Yes.
So sorry about that. Just to any the Canadians that are tuning in, instead of enjoying your Thanksgiving weekend, like shout out to you guys. Thanks for watching.
All right. Thank you all for listening. Till next time.
Kryptonana, exit liquidity, hodl-nana, dump it all. Kryptonana, exit liquidity, hodl-nana, dump it all. Kryptonana, exit liquidity, dump it all. Hodl-nana, dump it all. From the day we arrive on the blockchain and blinking step into the trade, there's more to lose than can ever be won, more to dump than can never be saved. Influencers, tweets, and the noobs all follow, buying high, selling low, what a game. But the boomers know, and Sailor, he knows that the dump is coming. It's all the same. It's the circle of exit liquidity, and it moves us all through despair and hope, through faith and FOMO, till we find our place on the path unwinding in the circle of exit liquidity. Some of us fall by the wayside, and some of us soar to the stars, but the influencers always win with the Lambos and their cars. So beware of the pump and the inevitable dump, for the cycle continues and the news get wrecked. Kryptonana, exit liquidity, hodl-nana, dump it all. Kryptonana, exit liquidity, hodl-nana, dump it all. Kryptonana, exit liquidity, dump it all. Hodl-nana, dump it all. It's the circle of exit liquidity, and it moves us all through despair and hope, through faith and FOMO, till we find our place on the path unwinding in the circle